bring it back. So now at home I have
You
this
just have
thing
it, yeah.
full of like 30 Vicodin. And then she goes, oh, okay, well, we'll give you some like Oxy. She goes, so they gave me that. And she goes, oh, but you're going to Europe. They gave me 2 full bottles. So from getting my wisdom teeth out, I got 3 full bottles of pain meds. Imagine what someone with a broken leg gets. Like,
yeah,
they are just, and then they're like, oh, you turned into a drug addict because we just gave you a bunch of shit. Sorry, not our problem.
Yeah.
Like, and that's a whole nother thing, even though what you're talking about. But yeah, like,
but it's still it's another door to that.
Yeah.
So I just want to throw that in there as well, because it's very much an issue. So I feel like drugs are more a social issue than a drug issue. So Paige and her sister Brittany started partying.
Wait, I want to say one. The other thing too is like, that was not. Oh, that was a good one. That also tastes.
Is that
broccoli.
what you wanted to say?
No, it's broccoli's gross coming back up. This is gross. The other thing too, and this links to your story when you're talking about people living in poverty, but there's a big difference between crack cocaine and like powder cocaine, like
sure,
and rich people doing better drugs and getting away with it versus poor people. Like and yeah, I don't know. I could go on and on.
Okay. So Paige and her sister Brittany started partying in high school, and Brittany, Paige's sister, would be the first to say like it got out of hand. There were massive amounts of drinking when they were young. Like they started before high school, they were partying, like I'd say middle school, because Paige was younger than Brittany and she just kind of followed along with what Brittany did. There were drugs, all kinds of stuff. And as a result of that, Paige got pregnant when she was 14. So a few years before this story. Brittany got pregnant at the exact same time, actually. Not like the same event, but like the same timeline. And so they were just a couple months apart in their pregnancy together in high school. They both gave birth to healthy baby girls within like a couple months of one another. And Brittany said that it was kind of, I mean, it's not fun because you're a teen and you're pregnant and it's hard and it's poverty and like.
But they were doing it together.
But she said it was like a bonding thing because they were both pregnant and they were both could help each other and had the same struggles. Like it was fun in the way that can be fun. So Paige named her daughter Mackenzie, and Mackenzie lived with Paige and Paige's mom and all that. Paige and Brittany's mom, Donna, was like shocked when the girls became pregnant. She like she knew they went out a lot, but she had no idea they were having sex. She had no idea they were drinking. Like she was oblivious to it now. I'm not sure if that's because she was like working a lot or I never read or heard of any addiction with her in any of her interviews, but like who knows why? Like people can hide things if they want to hide them, especially like teenagers of course can too. So they both had babies in the home now. So now back to the story. Paige is 17 now. Mackenzie, her daughter, is 2, and the Johnson family is like incredibly close. It was September 22nd of 2010. And Brittany had a family thing or like a party planned or something in town that Paige had agreed to meet her at in the evening on September 22nd. Paige had a cell phone, but it was the kind you like buy minutes on, like a flip phone or something. So she ran out of minutes. So she just told Brittany like, hey, I'll see you there later. I'm going to go hang out with like my friend Jacob and like some other people at a party, and then I'll come and meet you at yours. So Brittany left and Paige went on with her plans, which were to be picked up by a friend of hers named Jacob Bumpus. So Jacob was a big guy, and this may or may not be relevant, but it just like came up a lot in my readings. He was like big, like Ed Kemper. Like he was a tall, big, like I'm not meaning like a heavy man.
No, but like
he's a big guy.
Yeah.
Yeah. When you see pictures of him with like other quote unquote like average men, like he's just like above everyone. It's insane. Jacob was a friend of Paige's and of Brittany's, but he was more like an acquaintance friend. Like they weren't really that close. In fact, Paige's mom had never even heard his name. Like he was significantly older than Paige. Paige had just turned 17 when this night happened, like not even a month before. And he was 22. So it was like, not
all right. That's always what I think.
Yeah, exactly. Like he was too old to be hanging out with 16-year-olds. But like also when you look at their age later, it's not that big of an age gap.
Yeah, but there's something weird when you're like under the age of 21 or for sure under the age of 18.
Yeah, I could get like a 19-year-old and a 22-year-old like hanging out like a lot. But when I was 22, if I was like out hanging out with 16 and 17-year-olds, like it's a little weird, right?
Yeah.
I don't want to be judgy.
I remember in high school and I'm, being like 17, 18 and going to parties. And I remember there was this older kid, like he wasn't one of my friends, but he was like my someone's friend. I assume.
Yeah, he was just there.
And he was always
I hope everyone knew who that was.
Yeah, I mean, everyone knew him and he was always at parties, but he was out of high school when the rest of us were in high school. And so he was a couple years older. And I remember being like 17 or whatever and thinking like how cool he was. And then when I was his age, I was like, oh, what a fucking creeper.
Yeah, what a weirdo. Yeah.
I don't know.
But I can also get it in a really small town where maybe there's not a ton of young people. Like if you're 22, you're like, I don't want to hang out with 40-year-olds. And there's just like, I don't know.
I don't know. Looking back, I was like, oh, what a creeper. Yeah. It seemed weird to me.
Yeah. It's like when the senior asks out the freshman girl to prom. If you've done that, like, sorry, just pull yours. Moving on.
I mean, listen, I'm not judging about age. I prefer to date men who are at least 10 years older than me. Yeah.
But you're also not 16.
Correct. I am 25.
You're like, great. Thanks for ruining that.
I'm 25.
Yeah. It's okay. It's just your 4th year of being 25. It's fine.
Excuse me?
Excuse you. Did you fart or something? So we don't know much of what actually happened on September 22nd, but we do know.
What year is this?
2010.
2010. Okay.
We do know that Jacob took Paige to some kind of gathering because there were witnesses there. Witnesses saw them together that evening. Paige and Jacob were not romantic, like at all. In fact, Paige had a boyfriend, but I could find literally nothing on the boyfriend. I couldn't even find his name, which I'm kind of a sleuth. So I was like, oh, dang. Because of that, like, obviously something happens to Paige. Boyfriend, not a suspect. So they weren't romantic. They were just friends. Regardless, Paige never showed up to the event that Brittany had planned. And Brittany, at first, well, she wasn't really concerned at all that evening. She was just kind of annoyed. She was more like, cool, Paige, like, way to say you're going to come and not come. You must be drunk somewhere. Cool, fuck you. Yeah. Like that kind of thing. But in the middle of the night at like 1 a.m. Brittany received a Facebook message from Paige. So Paige's phone, was out of minutes, which everyone kept saying like, but her phone was out of minutes. So how'd she get on the computer? Her phone probably wasn't a smartphone, for one. Like when you have a minutes phone and you're poor in 2010, like I didn't even get a smartphone until like 2013. So I doubt that it was a smartphone. So what that means is she either borrowed someone's smartphone or she was able to find a computer to message her sister instead of texting her.
Or it wasn't her.
She sent Brittany a Facebook message that said, girl, call me. I need to talk to you ASAP. Which sounds kind of like what Paige would have said. Yeah. Because she was like, communicate with me. So Brittany was either partying on her own or didn't see it or was asleep or whatever. But either way, she said she didn't see the message until the morning. So when she saw that, she was like, oh, I wonder what's that. She went to find Paige to talk to her at home. She was at home now. But Paige wasn't there. Like she wasn't in her bed. She wasn't at the house. And Brittany was immediately concerned. Not because of the Facebook message, but she was pretty sure she knew what that was about. That night, I guess, because small town words travel fast and stuff. Everyone found out like her boyfriend had been cheating on her. So she thinks maybe Paige found out and was like, girl, I need to talk to you. Like, my boyfriend's cheating on me. That's what Brittany still thinks that text was about. But anyways, she was just worried because Paige would have never not came home. Like, even if she went out partying all night, she would have at least called or something. So it was like, this never would have happened. And people, that always kills me in like missing persons cases. Like the police are like, well, maybe she just like didn't want to come home yet. Like, you know, your family members. Yeah. Some people, sure, maybe they wouldn't check in. But if Paige checks in every time.
But it wouldn't be the first time. You don't just, like that would have been a habit already.
Yes, exactly. So the day grew on and like they couldn't get a hold of Paige. Like she didn't have a cell phone or anything. They didn't know where she was. She never came home. The afternoon turned into the evening. Like they were really, really concerned. She has a daughter. She was like a good mom, even though she was young. She wasn't just going to leave and like not let anyone know like, hey, take care of Mackenzie for me. So they filed a missing person report like on the 23rd, like the next day. They're like, we're not playing with this. The police immediately were like, well, another runaway. Like we're not really that concerned. She'll probably come back. And they were like, yo, no, she wouldn't do this. So the police did look into it, but Brittany and Donna were certain that they weren't as attentive as they needed to be. And they claim it's because of their economical situation. They're like, the police didn't really take it seriously, all that kind of stuff. They did talk to Brittany, who said that she had seen Paige get picked up by Jacob Bumpus. She's like, so start there. I don't know. That's what I saw. Brittany also talked to Jacob and was like, hey, I was supposed to meet with Paige last night on 15th and Scott, like a house on 15th and Scott, and she never showed up. Like, where is she? And Jacob was like, that's so weird because, yeah, I definitely dropped her off on like, I think it was 15th and Scott. Like, just kind of repeated what she said to him. And she was like, you just dropped her off right there?
What did the house look like, bro?
Yeah, exactly. One, this was like a super sketchy part of town that Brittany was like, Paige would have never went there alone. Like, she wouldn't have gotten out of a car and like walked alone. So she was like, there's no way you just dropped off Paige. And she like walked a little bit in the middle of the night at this sketchy part of town. Jacob told police the same thing, and that he had given Paige a couple beers. They'd met with some friends, and then he dropped her off at 15th and Scott, which...
But I wonder what time, though, because if she messaged her sister at 1 a.m.
Mm-hmm. I think he said it was like, well, I didn't read the exact times, but he definitely said it was before. It would have been between 3 and 4, and you'll see why.
Okay, so it was after the message.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Then he lawyered up immediately, which that always looks bad, but also like...
Oh, no, but I'd do the same.
Yeah, I was saying, but also if you're innocent or guilty, like you need to lawyer up. Like
don't take a polygraph. Get a lawyer.
Yeah, somebody has to advocate for you who knows the system.
Yeah, I would be innocent as fuck, obviously, because I wouldn't kill someone, but I would get a lawyer right away. So
get a lawyer. He lawyered up, and then he was silent. So the police asked other party goers. They found other people who had seen Paige and Jacob together that night. And multiple people said that Paige got so drunk and maybe high on something that she passed out at this get-together, and that a man named Mike, along with Jacob, carried her out of the party in his arms. Now, Mike is an acquaintance who was one of Jacob's friends. Paige didn't really know him that we know of, but Jacob was good friends with this guy named Mike, who was older than Jacob even. I think it's important to say that Jacob at this time in his life had an ongoing rape allegation that was unrelated to this, but you'll see why. So, and he was also on parole. I'm not sure if it was because I think the rape allegation, I don't know if he was ever charged, but he was definitely on parole for something. Mike had actually been charged with rape, the guy who was carrying Paige out at one point, and he was heavily into heroin. So the police looked into Jacob's cell phone pings to see if they matched his story, and they didn't.
I'm shocked.
His cell phone ping showed that at 3 and 4 in the morning, when he was supposedly dropping off Paige at 15th and Scott, that he went to East Fork State Park in Ohio. A 10,000-acre state park. Their town, they're from Florence, Kentucky, and it was on the border of Ohio. That's not far from Cincinnati, I guess. Suspicious. So Jacob didn't say anything about that to police, about going to this large park in the middle of the night at 4:18 a.m. when his cell phone pinged there. So police were kind of sneaky and cool, and they were like, well, we can't get you on anything, but you did break your parole. Can't cross state lines, so we're going to arrest you for breaking parole. So the night Paige went missing, Jacob also posted 2 kind of weird Facebook statuses. One said, like a fish. I'm thinking maybe drinking like a fish. And then the other one said, there must be something to cure this insomnia. Just some of those.
Like rape? Fucking asshole.
Like murder?
Just kidding. I don't know if he did it, so I shouldn't say that, but also, fuck you.
You'll find out. Well, you kind of will, but you won't. So Brittany and Donna immediately thought Jacob had something to do with this. Partially because Jacob was not a close friend of Paige's, so it was all kind of weird.
Well, and them carrying her out, I'm already suspicious.
And Brittany just had a feeling, and he was the last person Paige was seen with. It's just kind of odd. And the fact he didn't want to help at all. They had a huge search, and he refused. Sometimes the killers want to be involved, but he refused to help, say anything. And he was the last person, so his information would have been really valuable.
Yeah.
Anyway, so a search did begin in the area where Jacob's phone pinged in the 10,000-acre state park, but nothing at all was found. Police then sought search warrants for both Paige's Facebook and MySpace, because it was that transition where MySpace was kind of over and Facebook was kind of getting big. And Jacob's too. They wanted a search warrant to go to his. Jacob didn't cooperate at all. He pled the fifth, and the case went cold. And there was just nothing. So
I hate cases where where they have a suspect and they are pretty sure they at least know something. And it's so frustrating when they can't find evidence and the person who's a person of interest or suspect or whatever you want to call them just clams up and shuts down and doesn't talk. And then the case goes cold because of that.
But what else is odd is they never formally named him as a suspect. Now, I don't know why. Maybe some people just don't do that. But it was clear they were looking into him. They wanted to check all.
A lot of times they'll only call them a person of interest.
Yeah,
they won't name them as a suspect.
I think that's more what it was. Yeah, he wasn't named that way in the media. He may have been named that way in the police department. So a year went by, 2 years, 5 years. The Johnson family was collectively spiraling. They were still trying to keep Paige's name out there. Years had gone by since she had went missing. They went on podcasts like The Vanished with Marissa, TV channels, anywhere they could to draw attention to it. The police had kind of, I don't want to say forgotten about it, but there were no leads. It was just cold. Yeah. To say that Brittany, her sister, was devastated would be an understatement. She fell into a deep heroin addiction for years because of this. It was bad. Donna was also depressed, her mom, and said that she knew Paige had died. She just had this feeling. She was certain that she said that day, for some reason, when they reported her, she remembered she had this feeling. And the feeling reminded her of when she was a kid. Her dad had died and she was the one who found him. This is Paige's grandpa, who she never met. She said that she got home and there was just this feeling in the